Hello and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Thank you very much for joining me in today's video, and today I'm going to be starting to take a look at BlackSquare's Steam Gauge overhaul for the default Beechcraft Baron 58 that is available in Microsoft Flight Simulator Deluxe and Premium Deluxe Edition. Now, since this is an upgrade to that aircraft, it is only compatible with the Deluxe and Premium Deluxe editions of Microsoft Flight Simulator, so please do make sure that you do have the correct version before you purchase the product. Now, available on the Just Flight's website for £24.99, this product was kindly supplied to me for review, but as with all of my reviews, all of my opinions shall be honest and completely and entirely my own. Now, in this video, I will be taking a fairly comprehensive look at what this product does, as well as familiarising myself with the cockpit layouts and the systems because, well, as you can see in front of me, this is quite different to what you get with the default aircraft, which is just a two-panel glass cockpit. So I will need to familiarise myself with this, and then I'm going to go through starting up the aircraft and then getting it into a state ready to take off. And then in the next video, I will be taking the aircraft out for a flight, putting the systems to the test, and just seeing what this aircraft can do in the air, so please do make sure you stay tuned for both parts in order to get my full thoughts on it. And of course, if you do like these videos, please click on the like button, subscribe, and leave comments with your own thoughts. So without further ado, let's get started. That seems to be starting to become a catchphrase of mine. Without further ado, I seem to be adding it to a lot of videos. I should probably change that. Anyway, roll the intro, let's get started and let's see exactly what BlackSquare have done to make this aircraft far better than the default offering from Microsoft Flight Simulator. So starting off, the first thing that I am going to mention is that I've started this aircraft and I'm sitting in the cockpit as opposed to what I normally do, which is having a look at the outside and having a look at the exterior and doing an exterior pan around. Now, the reason for that is if I do just go to the exterior view, where apparently I'm looking at, oh yes, I was trying to see if these runways were going to be long enough for me to take off a twin prop. And I think these runways 08 and 26/08 should be long enough for a grass strip. Here's the aircraft. Let me go right back behind it. And this is stuck in the grass. And this aircraft is, from the exterior, exactly the same as the default aircraft. And this is really, really important because the reason this is only available for the deluxe versions is when I say it is an upgrade, it still uses the exact same exterior, barring I think there is one version of this aircraft that has wingtips. I'll get some more onto the two different variants of this aircraft in a moment, but it uses the same exterior as the default aircraft and it uses a lot of the same sounds. But do not let that fool you into thinking that, oh, well, this aircraft is not going to be very good because it's only an interior redesign. It is so much more than just an interior redesign. Sure, what you can see on screen is an interior redesign, but if I just talk about from the manual, now it comes with a 100-page manual, so that should start telling you exactly what this aircraft can do. Just on page 8 or page 9 of this manual, page 9, here we go, feature overview. So this is what has changed, and I'm going to read through page 9 and page 10 to give you an idea. BlackSquare's overhauled cockpits with analog instrumentation go far beyond a visual upgrade. As I was just saying, included, you will find a complete redesign of all aircraft systems to more closely match the real aircraft with a focus on electrical systems. Also included are more accurate weight and balance, lighting systems, flight dynamics, and ground handling. Enjoy features like reciprocating engine simulation with fouling, vapor lock, flooding, and backfires. The most realistic turbocharger simulation in Microsoft Flight Simulator to date. Turbocharger-driven pressurization and door seal system. Door seals will reduce cabin noise. Completely intractable electrical system with 4 buses and 85 circuits. Engine leaning optimization, lean find on EDM 760 engine monitor, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and status alarms. Engine limit excursions that decrease engine health and will eventually lead to failure. Selective state saving for radio selection, radio frequency memory, cabin aesthetics, etc. 100 plus system failures set. Now this is set via the in-cockpit interface. I'll show you that as well, because you're probably looking at this and going, what in-cockpit interface? There is nothing. It isn't like another Just Flight aircraft where I say Just Flight aircraft, this is obviously a BlackSquare overhaul, but Just Flight aircraft have like a tab over here, a little computer, an EFB, and this does not seem to have that, so I will show you that as well. And these failures can be random, based on settable MTBF, or schedulable with optional time acceleration, which sounds rather interesting. Cabin environmental control systems for heating, air conditioning, ventilation, ram air cooling, so you can cool things off by opening a window, or watch the aeroplane heat up in the sun. Crew passenger oxygen system that depletes according to pressure, altitude, passenger occupancy and their weight, with a working carbon monoxide detector. This is going to be interesting. I want to see if I can get it into a state at some point where the carbon monoxide detector goes off. Then there is over 500 checklist items on 40 normal, abnormal and emergency procedure checklists. So comparing this to the default aircraft, that has 19 items in 3 checklists. This has 500 items in, I think it is 42 checklists, which is a lot. All of these checklists are available on the manual, and they are also available just here. If we just go to these checklists, there you go. All the checklists right there. Normal, abnormal, and emergency procedures as stated. We've also got mathematically accurate VOR and ADF signal attenuation and noise and remote compass. Now this is pretty cool, so I may as well explain a little bit about this. I know we're just sort of looking at this. In fact, let me just give you a different view. I don't know. There you go. There's a slightly different view to enjoy. I'll go and take a screenshot of that view as well. So what does it mean by this correct mathematically accurate signal attenuation? Now in Microsoft Flight Simulator, if you are within range of an ADF beacon or an NDB, something that the ADF can receive a signal from, or a VOR station, what you will end up with is a perfect signal showing you and tracking you to your NDB or to your VOR. Now in real life, that is not an accurate thing, because we have interference as far away as you can go. So if you go right up to so you'll come into the range of the VOR or the NDB, and then you will have a lot of a low signal, so a lot of interference, and that is going to cause problems. The closer you get to said NDB VOR, the clearer the signal is going to be. Now, of course, there are also other things that need to be taken into account. For example, if your VOR is behind a hill, you're probably not going to get it if you do not have direct line of sight. Now, I'm not sure if that is modelled in this. I'm not actually sure if that's just modelled in Microsoft Flight Simulator, that if it has line of sight, it just gives you perfect signals. But this does say that it has signal attenuation and noise. So that's not just the strength of the signal, but other things interfering with the signal. Then, with the sounds, we have the default Microsoft Flight Simulator sounds, but also on top of that, there are custom sounds added for warnings, environmental control systems, electronics, turbocharger, engine cooling, and more. So this is where the sounds have been augmented, particularly with the turbocharger, and again, I will talk about the turbocharged variant of this aircraft soon. Then inside, this interior, I'll look at that in a little bit more detail as well in a moment. I'm not going to go through too much of that, but again, extremely accurate, both the interior, the panels that you see, and also the rest of the cabin, seats, things like that have also, I believe, been changed. And then we've also got the flight dynamics. So we've got an improved flight model, which is compared to the default Baron, with tweaks that are based on operator feedback and real flight data. For example, drag will vary with the cowl flap settings and air conditioning condenser scoop positions. So if you have your cowl flaps deployed, you are going to have more drag. If you have your air conditioner scoop fully deployed, you are going to have more drag, because that does invariably create a drag behind the scoops. Also, you'll have engine damage and fouling, and that can produce rough engine running, and then you will have decreased performance. So your performance is going to be decreased whilst you're in the air. You may find that you cannot reach the service ceiling of this aircraft because your engine is running rough, or you may find that it will not accelerate the way you want it to. The climb speed is wrong. All of this has been taken into account. So, with all of that said and done, there is another couple of pages, or 3 pages, all about the operating procedures and aircraft specifications for this. So whether you've got your cruising speeds, your never exceed speeds, your minimum maneuverability speeds, all of your V speeds, you've got engine limitations, you've got other operating limitations, so other procedures. For example, do not engage starter for more than 30 seconds in any 4-minute period. This is something that in the normal aircraft you could do. You could just hold the starter and just hold it on. In fact, in any other aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you could do that. That isn't a study level aircraft. So what has happened here is that the developer has changed this from a basic default aircraft that anybody can fly, which is, by the way, still available. You can just jump into that aircraft still. This does not replace it. It adds new versions. I was going to say added new versions, but no. It adds new versions of that aircraft, or this aircraft. So it turns it from that very basic aircraft to what I would class as probably a full study level simulation that you can get in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Great. Now, there are a couple of other things that I need to point out before we start looking at this cockpit in a little bit more depth, and I start going through the startup procedures and all of that stuff. And those things are, first off, we have this Garmin unit here. So this is a touchscreen unit. This is the Garmin GTN 750. If you want to use this, and the reason I say if is because you can swap this out. If you want to use this Garmin touchscreen unit, you will need to get a separate download. It is free. It is available in the README, and that is going to be the PMS GTN 750. That is the mod that you need. You download it, you put it into your community folder, and this will then work. Now, I have not downloaded it because I do not particularly like using touchscreens, so I will not be using the touchscreen version, and therefore there is no point me downloading it. Similarly, if you want to use another one of the units, which is the GNS 530 and 430, so you can see that the 430 is down here, and I will show you the 530 in a little bit, you can install, it will work with default Microsoft Flight Simulator, they do have it, but you can install a better version, which is the working title GNS 530 and 430, which is going to become part of default Microsoft Flight Simulator at some point. But this one, all you have to do is go to the Microsoft Flight Simulator Marketplace from the main menu, type in working title, and you should be able to find the GNS 530/430, go ahead and download it, job done, it's integrated and it works. So there we go. That is everything that I think I need to say without starting to go a little bit more into the in-depth on this particular cockpit, and then of course mentioning the 2 different versions of this aircraft. In fact, I may as well start by mentioning the 2 different versions of this aircraft. So you have this version here, which is the normalized version, and then we have a pressurized version, which is turbocharged. Now, the turbocharged version, not only does it have things like door seals for better pressurization, it obviously, being turbocharged, has better performance. In fact, I may as well read out the performance for these. So just a difference between the 2 aircraft. The maximum cruising speed for this particular aircraft is 198 198 knots true airspeed. I was going to say indicated. True airspeed. So you can see that that is marked up right there. Now I say true airspeed. That is what it says here on the manual. I would have thought that would be indicated because true airspeed will be down here. And I'm fairly sure that... hold on, I'm just going to check something. Say we are at 6,000... Oh no, that would probably work. Because if we are at 10,000 feet at minus 20 degrees, it will probably be showing us about there, 170-ish knots indicated, which is actually 200 knots true airspeed. So that would make sense. And it sounds like my laptop fans have just kicked in. You may be able to hear that in the background. Hopefully it is not too loud at all. So yes, 198 knots true airspeed, whereas the aircraft performance pressurized is 261 knots true airspeed. Your normal cruising speed, 180 knots for the normal one. For the pressurized one, 245. Takeoff distance is increased as well from 2,345 feet to 2,643 feet, naturally because the aircraft is somewhat heavier. That means you also have a longer takeoff roll, but because it is turbocharged, you also have a better service ceiling. So the standard aircraft, naturally aspirated, 20,668 feet, as opposed to 25,000 feet for the pressurized one, the turbocharged one. Although that being said, there are a few differences in how the aircraft flies with the turbocharger, one of them being to do with leaning the aircraft and when you need to lean the aircraft. So I will be talking about that as well in a little while. Now, if you want to know the rest of the information about the differences between the two aircraft in terms of speed and performance and economy, do go check out the manual. I believe the manual is just free to download off the website, so you should be okay with doing that. Let's have a look now at the flight deck. So we have a new yoke. Now the yoke does have buttons that work. So you've got autopilot disconnects over here, trim buttons, a light button for the map and the compass and OAT, outside air temperature, which is this one over here. So that button will light all of that up. You've got an ident function right there, CWS right there, and push to talk right there, which is at the back, but you cannot see it. So yeah, the push to talk is behind the... I wonder if I could look around. Maybe if I were to do this. No. Possibly. Hold on. I want to see if I can show you the... no. Doesn't show up. Okay. Never mind. So that's... I wanted to see if I could show you the aircraft, but... Oh, the button. It's just behind there. Or is it down the side? Anyway, I'm not going to bother doing that. That's just going to be wasting time. Reset that, please. So, and also we've got a working chronometer here as well with different modes. So you can have elapsed time, or you can have it in UTC or local time. So you have that available to you as well. Let's get rid of that by clicking on the shaft of the yoke. On this side, a little bit different because obviously the shaft is, you've got to click right at the top of the shaft or the furthest point away from you, and you cannot do that here. But you sort of can, just click on this side of the yoke. Left hand side of the yoke, it's gone. There we go. Let's have a good look at what we have then before starting up this aircraft. So we've got annunciator panel up here, standard annunciator panel. Should be able to read that. Gear up, low voltage, left and right altimeter, cowl flaps, left and right, air conditioning door, that's that compressor door I believe, starter ignition, starter engaged, off door for the cargo I guess, and then I'm assuming these three are going to be anti-ice, probably pitot heat and maybe windshield heat or some sort of defrosting system. We've also got a few over here which is a little bit harder to read. but once I put the test on, I should be able to show you that. Looks like we've got markers. We have, I see autopilot there, yaw damper, nav just about. I think I see heading select as well. So this is your autopilot. This is just giving you some autopilot information. We've then got our options to switch between nav and GPS and approach. We have, that looks like an altimeter autopilot computer. So that allows us to change vertical speed, set the altimeter, arm that, and I guess engage it too. So that's pretty good. We have our airspeed indicator, as I said, with true airspeed. Also has a couple of marks on this. So that is very quickly, your white band is your flap speed. So minimum flaps at that point. You cannot have flaps more at a higher speed than that. You will damage the aircraft or damage the flaps. Maximum flaps there, anything below that, and you will stall. The green is your normal operating range. So below the green with no flaps, you will stall. And obviously I'll go into the above in a little bit. Red is your stall speed, which again is just below, as you can see, just below that green. So it looks like the stall speed is 74 knots on this aircraft. Blue, I believe, is the single engine maneuverability speed. So you can maneuver and fly and climb at 100 knots with a single engine and it should be okay. But anything below that and you're either going to struggle or be unable to fly the aircraft properly. So that is what that blue line is. Then you've got your abnormal range. You should only be in this range if you are in completely smooth air. If you're in turbulent air, you really should not be in this range. Try to avoid it anyway. And then the red marker there is your never exceed speed. So there you go. That is that stated. Also, you can use this area. So you've got your temperatures there in tens. So plus 30, 20, 10, 0, and then all the way down, of course. And then you've also got your altitude there, so pop in your altitude there and that there, so you move that, and that will rotate the speed card on the bottom. So this is just a card underneath it. We'll rotate the entire speed card on the bottom, and that will give you your actual true airspeed in the white. So there you go, nice and simple. We've got a Bendix King KI 256 vacuum artificial horizon, just bog standard, exactly as it should be, with a little decision height icon which will flash yellow. I'll show you how that is set up in a little bit. You've got a standard altimeter, Bendix King KEA 130A altimeter. Again, you can tune this by rotating this knob here, so you can set up your barometric pressure, whether you want that in inches of mercury or millibars, and that will have an impact on the offset of your needle, which will give you your accurate altitude when you are on the ground or within any range that is not using standard altitude. So for example, in the UK, if you are below 6,000 feet, I can press B and that will reset. That's an old flight simulator. That's an old flight simulator hotkey. B for barometric pressure. We've also got a turn coordinator right here. So turn coordinator with a 2-minute turns indicated at these marks, and then of course we've got our slip and skid information right there as well. Next to that, we have got a horizontal situation indicator, which is just, it's a bit like a direction indicator, but it has a rotating compass card. You can do a lot more with it. It also has glide slope and localizer information. You've also got a heading bug, so you can set up headings, and you can tune in a localizer or a VOR here / localizer just by tuning that in to match the course that you need it to tune, or that you need it to be. Next to that, standard vertical speed indicator, self-explanatory, goes from 0 to 4,000 feet per minute, plus or minus. Down here we have, and this is what I was talking about with the decision height, this is a radar altimeter. So the radar altimeter, what that does is that there is a radar in the underbelly of this aircraft that does work. Now, if you are below, I think, a certain altitude, a few feet, I think, is it 10 feet or 20 feet? If you are below 10 or 20 feet, this will not work. I think it's 10 feet. So that is why it shows it as off right now. But anything above 10 feet above the ground, all the way to 2,500 feet above the ground, you will get this moving and you will have radar altitude. So what that tells you is how high you are above the ground as opposed to your altitude above sea level. Pretty nifty, especially if you're coming into land. That is why the decision height is there. You can tune in a decision height. So for example, I'll say decision height of 150 feet. So it seems to go up in roughly in tens. In fact, it does look like it is going up in tens. So it goes up in tens, 150 feet. So when you reach 150 feet above ground, this will start flashing, as will that, and that is your decision height. Now, there are normally two ways to do decision heights. You use above ground, or you'll use barometric pressure. So do go check out, if you are flying with charts, check out what the decision height is, and it's look at the elevation of the airfield, and you will notice that the difference between the two decision heights is the elevation of the airfield. So if your airfield is below ground, your decision height for the radar altitude will be lower than your barometric one, and then vice versa. Normally you'll have it obviously higher. So for example, Heathrow Airport is, I believe, 83 feet. So the difference between the two decision heights will be 83 feet. So there we go. That is that. Next to that, we have the 229, Bendix King 229 RMI, radio magnetic indicator. This has two functions. This is an automatic compass card, rotating compass card, so you do not need to rotate it. But you've got two functions here. You've got a nav2, so you've got the nav2 instrument right there, or the nav2 needle, which is the yellow one, and then the green one is the ADF. So that will obviously point you in the direction of an ADF. Perfect. Nice and simple, nice and easy to use. Over here, we've got our DME. Is this DME? No, it isn't. It is DME. This is DME. So this will give you your distance measuring equipment. So what you can do, you can have it set to nav 1, nav 2, off, hold, which is kind of interesting. So I've never really used hold because I didn't think it works, but in this aircraft apparently it works. So let's say you've set nav 1 to be a certain place, nav 2 to be a certain place, and then what you want to do is you need to tune in a new nav 1 because you know you're flying to a certain, let's say, VOR, but you still need to know the distance to said VOR. So what you do is you put it into hold. Put it into hold, change nav 1, and this will hold the previous frequency until you go back to nav 1 or go to nav 2. Pretty useful. So that is how you use that. And then we've got our localizer right here. So your standard KI-206 localizer with your localizer and glide slope indications. And of course you can tune it in as you normally would. So that is this section completed. Then we've got all of our engine instrumentation. So you've got two engines, of course, so you'll have two sets of manifold pressure. For the turbocharged one, the manifold pressure will be higher. You've got your RPM, you've got your fuel flow in gallons per hour, and that's US gallons per hour, I believe. You've got temperatures of your cylinder head, which is the CHT there, and then your exhaust gas on this side. This will actually tell you whether you need to have a cold start or hot start, by the way. So if it is below 50, cold start. If not, hot start. And of course, you need to always be careful that your cylinder head temperatures are not going... I wouldn't want it to really be exceeding 200 and... Really, actually, 200. Wouldn't want it much above 200 because that is getting into the red limit, or close to the red limit. Then below that you have your oil temperature and pressure, of course, with your with your temperatures having a maximum and a minimum, and you want them within the green, particularly the pressure. If you lose oil pressure, could be a problem. I believe that is a failure that you can have. Now, we'll get on to these systems in a moment, but I'm just going to hop over to this side, skip the radio stack and the avionics stack over here for a moment. Standby instruments over here. So you've got true airspeed, artificial horizon, or airspeed, artificial horizon, and altimeter right there. If I remember correctly, this altimeter is the one that has an impact on... there's something it has an impact on, and I've completely forgotten. This altimeter does not. So do be aware that if you are setting up an altimeter, I think it's for one of the avionics, this is the one that it looks at, not this one over here. Right, next to that we have the ELT, which does actually work, armed, and then you can switch it on. So there you go, that works. Again, I'll come back to this little section here momentarily, but I'm just going to go through this bit. So we've got a cabin, just a thermometer here. So nice and simple, Fahrenheit or Celsius/centigrade, whichever you prefer. The carbon monoxide guard here, which does actually work. I've not heard the alarm though. I thought maybe if you press this you need to hit the alarm, but that does not seem to be a thing. Then you've got a bunch of circuit breakers on this side. Useful because every single one of them work. If you had the pressurized version, the turbocharged version of this aircraft, you will have extra gauges here for cabin pressure, cabin differential pressure, and also some knobs to change how quickly the cabin is pressurizing/depressurizing. There are also some dump valve switches or dump valve buttons as well over there. So do bear that in mind, that if you pick up the 58P, that is what you are going to get. This bit will look a little bit different. Flaps, self-explanatory. Oxygen pressure right there. Lighting controls for your dimming right there. Prop amps, de-icing pressure, 2 fuel gauges, altimeter loads in as an ampage, both here, left and right. Bus voltage for the main bus. That is DC volts, of course, voltmeter. Then you've got your main switch panel right here. So all of your switches are here. So you've got your landing gear, your parking brakes, fuel boost pumps, heaters, air conditioning, whole bunch of lights. These are just levers to switch on and off or change the amount of heating that you're getting, and the oxygen as well to feed oxygen into the cabin. Then you've got your battery switches and your alternator switches, Avionics Master. Prop sync, we will go through that when we are flying. Pitot heat, so this is all your icing. So pitot heat left and right, fuel vent, stall warning heater, windshield, and prop. Surface de-icer, auto or manual. So that is manual, that is in auto, and then a vent blower right there. A whole additional section of switches, or circuit breakers, sorry. Every single one of these do work. Cabin vent down there. I'm not sure, I think it's this, but I'm not sure how to actually, if it is actually that. I think it is. And then over here we've got alternate static air, which is kind of hidden just there. So it needs to be in that position. That's the normal position. That is the alternate position right there. Then you've got your outside air temperature, as I said. Working window. Doors do not open because the exterior model does not allow it. Unfortunately, that's the one downside of this aircraft, I would say. What else do we have? Let's see. Elevator trim, rudder trim, aileron trim, cowl flaps, fuel selectors, and then your throttle stack here. Throttles, pitch, prop RPM, pitch, and your mixture. And I believe that is everything in that section. All we have left is the avionics stack. Now, you're probably wondering, why have I left this avionics stack until last? Well, the reason being is that this avionics stack can be changed. So, we'll start with this one up here. So this is the Garmin GTN 750, as I mentioned, the touchscreen display. If you have the Garmin display installed, as I also mentioned earlier, then this is fine. And if you want to use the touchscreen display, there it is. Below that, we have the GNS 430W. So this is a second Garmin unit which works as our nav radio. So you'll have, I think we have nav 1 on this one, and then nav 2 on the 430. Underneath that, we have the KNS 81, and this is our RNAV radio. Now, a little bit about this RNAV. So RNAV is obviously radio navigation. How exactly does it work in an aircraft like this? This is a very old aircraft. Well, what it is that before we had RNAV procedures, you could still fly RNAV. You had waypoints that you could fly to. But how would you know where these waypoints are if it isn't built into a computer? You use one of these systems. So what this system does is it allows you to dial in a frequency, which will give you a station. It then allows you to add a radial from that station. So let's say, for example, a radial of, in fact, if I pull up Navigraph on my phone, I will give you an actual example of this. This is probably a good idea. So obviously I will be giving you a UK example because that is just what I do. I will pull up, let's see. Well, since we're at Manchester Barton, let's pull up Pole Hill and let's look for the Barton intersection. So we have a waypoint, Barton. So we've got an intersection here. Now this is from Pole Hill, which is 112.1. It is on a radial of 216, 20 nautical miles away. So 36 from Barton to Pole Hill is 036. So what you do is you put the radial in, you put the distance of 20 nautical miles away, and what it will do is it will effectively move the Pole Hill VOR above Barton. And now you can fly to Barton, because that is now your RNAV radio, and that is how it works. At least that is how I believe it works. If it doesn't work like that, I am going to find out, but I'm fairly sure that is how it works. In addition to that, you can actually tune in with this RNAV radio. You can tune in multiple waypoints, so you can set it up to have more than just a single waypoint, and what that will give you is you could effectively fly a procedure in and just go next waypoint, next waypoint, next waypoint, and fly an entire procedure into the airport, into an airport. So that is how this works. Underneath that, we have our autopilot system, self-explanatory, flight director, altitude, heading, nav, approach, back course, test, autopilot engage, up and down for controlling vertical speed or anything like that, which you can also do over here. Then we've got the Bendix King RDR 1150XL weather radar. This is default to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Does it work? Yes, it does, which is quite impressive. So it does work, but not perfectly. The tilt function does not work. The rest of it does seem to work. Also, built into this is where we control our failures and our engine. So we can reset our engine failures, we can reset engine condition here, we can plan in failures, customize our failures, all of that in this system just by taking it all the way through to, I believe, nav and log. And that is how you do that. So this is how we have a little computer within our weather radar as opposed to having an electronic flight bag which does it for us. Underneath that is the Garmin GTX 327 transponder, and then underneath that is the Bendix King KR87 TSO ADF. So that's, you just tune in your ADF there, and then of course it will have an impact on this over here. If you do not want to use the touchscreen, all you do is see where it says COM1, COM2. This allows us to switch things over. So go to, flick that down, and now we have a GNS 530. On top of that, we have an audio panel, the GMA 340 up here, because this has the audio panel integrated into it. This does not. This is what I prefer to use. I prefer to use the GNS 530. Not touchscreen, much, much better in my opinion. If you did not want to use this though, and wanted to go right back to the 1980s and 1990s before any of these GPS units, do that, and you've got the Bendix King KX155 TSO old school nav radios right there. Great to use. I would use this or this. These are my two choices. Similarly with the 430, which I will not be using, what I'll do is switch to the 155, and there you go, nav 2 is now selected with the KX155. Lastly, we have this thing here. This is the EDM 760. Now, I cannot really show you much about this until we are flying, but this is an engine monitor. What you have here is you've got each one of your 6 cylinders on each engine, and then the 7th bar, I believe, is your oil temperature or exhaust gas temperature, one or the other. I think it can switch between the two. And then you've got over here a little computer which will give you a whole bunch of information. You can get your economy, you can get the power your engines are producing, all of that kind of stuff. It can help you by pressing that button. It can help you lean your engine and make sure that you've got either the best power or the best range, whether you're going to lean rich or lean lean. So it's just adjusting your mixture. This is how you do that. I haven't used it, similar to how I haven't used the RNAV. In fact, I have not even really flown this plane. I've done a little bit of, I've just taken it off to make sure it works, but I haven't actually flown the plane. So this is going to be quite interesting when I get to using that. That is everything. And as you can see, that has taken me a good, 30 minutes to go through. Just this panel here has taken me 30 minutes to go through. That is how much depth there is to these panels, and everything that I've just talked about, every single switch, every single button works. So that is what you are going to get for this product. Let's go ahead and start this aircraft up, shall we? And then we're going to crash into this person because I have no other way of getting around, I don't think. So I'll go ahead and start the aircraft up, and let's see if I can start this up properly, because unlike a standard Microsoft Flight Simulator default aircraft or even some other add-ons, you've got to do this properly. So we'll have to see exactly whether or not I mess up this engine. So let's go through the before start checklist. Pre-flight inspection, I'm going to mark it as complete. Seats and seatbelts, secures, cabin doors latched, parking brake set, emergency gear handle stowed. Press Control 8 to get to the emergency gear handle. That is stowed. Check. Avionics breakers all in. This is the Avionics breakers, I believe. Yep, Avionics breakers all in. That's then popped out, by the way, just so that you can see. There's a red mark to have them popped out. Checked. Flaps up. Oxygen pressure 1550 to 1850 psi. Check. Avionics all off. That could be interesting because they are not off. Which I find interesting that this aircraft starts in a cold and dark state, but the avionics seem to be on. So maybe in an update, if the developer happens to watch this, maybe in an update you could ensure that these are all switched off for a cold and dark start. I don't know if that is possible, but let's just ensure that every bit of avionics that I can see is switched off, which I believe that is everything switched off. Great. Throttles closed. Propeller high RPM. Mixture full rich. Cowl flaps open. Check, check, check. Aileron trim centered. Rudder trim centered. Landing gear down. Sub panel switches are all off. Check. Main breakers all in. Check. Alternate static air normal. Check. Carbon monoxide detector test. Working. Fuel selectors on. Oh yes, did I mention the fuel selectors? I think I did. Beacon light, on. Battery master, on. Bus voltage, 23 volts minimum, check. Annunciators, test and consider. So there is a little test button just there. Go ahead and press that, and that lights everything up. There you go. It's boost pressure, boot pressure, pitot heat, and windshield heat. That's the three that we have for the de-icing. Perfect. Still cannot see all of these in here, unfortunately. I know that they are there, but obviously with the physically based rendering and the shading, you've actually got the sunlight hitting it, and I'm not able to see it. This is, by the way, starting up, going through its self-test clearly, or it has been through its self-test. Left alternator on, right alternator on, check, check. Fuel quantities, half a tank in each, check. Cabin heater as desired. We are currently at 54, which is what? 12 degrees Celsius. So sure, I should probably have the cabin heater on. So let's go ahead and switch the heater on, switch it on to low, and just have just a little bit of heat, and we'll see if that does increase the temperature. Left boost pump low, and I'm supposed to listen for something, so low. I cannot hear it over the heater. Just about hear it. There we go. So I'll switch that to low. That's all done. So those are off. Perfect. And that's the pre-engine start checklist complete. Right, now let's go to a cold start. So bus voltage 28 volts. Well, it isn't, but it's 25.6. I'm going to attempt to start it anyway. Engine instruments, check. Everything seems okay. Left mixture. Now, with this, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do this because I've got them tied to 1. So I'm going to have to leave both up. So left mixture full rich, left prop high RPM, left throttle full open. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do this with my mouse because, again, I have 2 throttles on 1 control because I only have 1 control, so I'll have to do this with the mouse. Left boost pump, high for 2 to 3 seconds. Fuel flow greater than 3 gallons per hour. Well, that certainly it is, and you could actually see it over here if you wanted. It was 7 there. Switch that off. Where was it? I did have it. Come on, oil, no, battery, differential pressure, there it is. There's your fuel flow. Bring this to 1/2 inch, which is probably about there, and let's try and start this engine. Prop clear. And what you have to do is click and hold this. And I'm hoping it starts. And we have a good start. Good, and we're going to do the exact same for the right engine. So we'll go ahead and left throttle 1000 to 1200 RPM, that is fine. Oil pressure is green, and the start annunciator has been extinguished. There is no low voltage light. Left alternator has also been extinguished, and we actually have 28 volts now. So that is good. And left alternator load needs to... So we've got the... I completely missed the right one. I was going to say, where's the right one gone? That is why it had bus volts 28. Why did it start at the bottom? Should have started there. Well, we started the left engine first, but that is completely okay. I'll go ahead and do the exact same procedure for this engine. So we'll go ahead and bring that up. And then bring it back down. Bring that to cranked there. And let's go ahead and start this engine too. And there we go. 2 good starts. Perfect. So that's all done, and then we're looking at the alternator loads, and it's going to be below 25 amps in 2 minutes. Well, both loads are pretty low. How is the heating? 19 degrees, maybe just a tad more. 20 degrees Celsius should be okay. For those people who work in Fahrenheit, that is 67 degrees. It'd be 69, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what we do have here is a desync on the prop. So you can see that this is moving. So this, when this rotates, this is telling you that one propeller is spinning faster than the other and therefore producing more power than the other. If we have a look at this, may be able to actually see that. No, both showing us 16 horsepower at the moment, which is pretty little. But yes, we've got a slight desync in the propellers. Now, to fix that, what we could do is we could just adjust one of these ever so slightly. So if we were to adjust one of them, although this isn't really going to do much here, I guess we've just got to adjust the throttle ever so slightly. There you go. Adjust the throttle. In flight you could adjust the RPM, but just adjusting the throttle ever so slightly will balance it. Or what you could do is click prop sync, and that will also do it for you. So that is something to be sure of. Everything looks okay now. Now what I am going to do is I am going to lean this, and the reason I'm going to do that, I need to aggressively lean this aircraft because I can foul the spark plugs. So that is why I'm leaning the aircraft. 21 degrees, I think we're okay. I'll go ahead and do that and switch the heater off. And let's see what we have. So, as we're coming up to the end of this video, what I'm going to do here is I will actually leave it here, and in the next video I'm going to go through the after start checklist. In fact, I guess after start checklist is already done. Obviously I can switch on whatever lights I want, so taxi lights, I can switch on floodlights, panel lights, but panel lights really do not need to be on at this point in time. Really good attention to detail here. When the panel lights come on, these dim. Very, very good attention to detail. And then of course once we get to the runway, we're going to switch on the strobe lights, landing lights, and move on from there. Cabin heat and everything I have done, which apparently is, leave that on low. Apparently the temperature's dropping again. It is only, what, 12 degrees outside, I think? No, apparently it is 18 degrees outside. So why was it 12 in the aircraft? That is a little strange. Very, very strange. And then, of course, we can go ahead and do what we need to do by flying or by taxiing out. We'll do the run-up in the next episode, and then we'll do the takeoff, we'll give it a flight, and then we will land it, and I will give you my final thoughts. So, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more videos on Microsoft Flight Simulator, and of course for the second part of this video. That's quite cool. I can switch that on and you can actually hear the, or I can open the window and you can actually hear the aircraft, the props. That is pretty cool. So yes, as I said, please do stay tuned for part 2 if you want to see this aircraft flying. So far I am impressed. With this aircraft. It has a lot of depth, a lot of detail, and that for me in a flight simulator, that is very, very important. So thank you very much for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. If you can do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, link in the description box below for that. Again, thank you to Just Flight for providing a key for this. This is going to be an aircraft that as I start flying more in Flight Simulator, I think this is going to be an aircraft that I do return to more often than not. And yes, if also you want to do so, you can find me on social media at ECGadgetLP for both Instagram and Twitter, at least for now on Twitter. And also my Discord server is linked in the description box below too, so do go check that out if you want to join a small but growing community. That is all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time for part 2 of my review of the BlackSquare steam gauge overhaul for the Beechcraft Baron 58 in Microsoft Flight Simulator.